Good evening. Welcome to a series of live interviews with some of the Theatre by QE2 entertainers and comedians. Tonight, both. Thank you to Theatre by QE2, Big Fish Comedy, Book My Show, and H2 Productions. Nigel, as ever, in the background on the wheel, pressing the buttons. Now, if you entered the competition on last night's show, don't forget the winner's going to be announced in the comments of the Facebook page you're watching on now. We're giving away free tickets every night for future productions with Theatre by QE2, and I've got another quiz question in the show in a few minutes. Now, tonight is a chance to talk to the creators and the stars of Potted Potter, the unauthorized Harry Potter experience. It's a parody by Dan and Jeff, who you'll see in a moment, and it takes on, and it really is the ultimate challenge, I think. It condenses all 7 Harry Potter books and a real-life game of Quidditch into 70 minutes. Here's an even quicker sneak peek.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Dan and Jeff?
Now, it turned out he was a wizard. So they gave him a wand.
Thank you.
And an owl called Hedwig. Twitch-woo.
Oh, a message.
I hate you.
God. He made another enemy as well by the name of Draco Malfoy.
I hate you as well.
Stop!
It is I, the evil Lord Voldemort! No, Harry Potter! You have defeated me for a second time! I see a pattern forming here, and to be honest, I'm not best pleased.
Ron Weasley from a watery prison. Oh, help, save me, Harry Potter. Thanks, you is my blood.
It's Lord Voldemort!
It's Voldemort time! Oh, fear the wizard, but love the body!
Tell me, does Voldemort die?
Stroked beard nervously.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. With me, Dan and Jeff. He's Dan. And he's Jeff, and you've just witnessed Potted Potter. Thank you. Thank you.
And the Dan in question is Dan Clarkson. The Jeff is Jeff Turner. Dan is on the left. Jeff's going to be on the right. Guys, lovely to have you on. Nice to see you.
How are you doing? How's it going?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
That was lovely
Not
to
too
watch.
bad.
I remember that video. That video was in the time
well-
of haircuts and things. It was a great time.
I'm going to talk to you about lockdown in a minute and some of the things you've been doing in lockdown. But I want to start with the whole premise of this, really, because that video gives you an idea of what you do, potted into 70 odd seconds. Normally it's 70 minutes. It's an amazing thing to put 7 of the most popular books of recent times, the Harry Potter series, into 70 minutes. I just would like to start by asking which one of you is the nutter that decided to try and do that?
Well, it was, I mean, we're going back a long, long time ago now. I think like 14 years ago. And a friend of mine was working in PR and came to me, knowing I was a Harry Potter fan, said, we want to do something to entertain the crowds at midnight who are queuing for the book. I think it was book 6. And had this idea of going, oh, well, we could do a recap of all 5 books in 5 minutes. It'll be a lot of fun. I knew Jeff at the time, who I still stand by this, that if you squint and look the other way, he looks just like Daniel Radcliffe. So brought him on board, and we sort of, and this sort of, I think, well, you look more like Elton John now, but we'll get into that later.
Well, to be fair, lockdown has been really tough on me.
Yeah. I actually thought you were looking quite good today. I thought it's been really good to you. You were looking a bit of colour in your face. Yeah.
You thought I looked worse.
Anyway,
before.
so we came up with this idea of doing all 5 books in 5 minutes to entertain the crowds at midnight. And it was just like a street theatre show. Went quite well. So from there, we took it to Edinburgh and we added in the 6th book. And that's where sort of the first Potted Potter as a show came about at the Edinburgh Festival, performing to 60 odd people in a church hall. And then it sort of moved from there. It turns out Harry Potter was quite popular. Who knew? I mean, we were just trying to take this small book to the masses. But the masses
this
got
is the
there long
thing, isn't
before
it?
us.
It's a phenomenon. It really is. Jeff, when you were roped into this, I mean, they're incredibly complex books. They're beautifully drawn complex characters, exotic creatures, locations. There's loads of magic to boot as well. There is, I was going to say rabid following, but that does not do it justice. When you were doing this essentially street theatre for the launch of book 6 in 5 minutes, what did the fans actually think queuing for the book?
Well, at the bookstore at midnight, we naively were expecting to be have about 50 of them watch us. We thought we'd just be in one corner of the bookstore while other things were going on. What we hadn't realised was when we were on, we were the only thing on. So there were 1,000 of them, all crammed round us in this bookstore, and it was one of the most ridiculous atmospheres we've ever been in. And we could barely hear ourselves. We did the show twice. It was about 12 or 15 minutes long then, and neither of us had a voice left at the end of it because we were just screaming. And their reactions, because, we were taking something they adored, they loved so much they were queuing to buy the next book. Their reactions were so amazing. That was when we very first thought, this could actually be something. There might be an audience for this, because, we just did it. It was a couple of £100 for a couple of days' work, and we were jobbing actors, and we were delighted with that at the time, and never thought it would be anything else.
I mean, this is the thing. I was kind of thinking about the reaction. I've got a 13-year-old daughter who is a Potter freak. She makes me sit down and watch the movies regularly, i.e. once a week. And I suppose when you perform to 1,000 fans in an enclosed area, it's kind of intimidating, not a little scary. But Dan, you're going to either sink or swim pretty fast, don't you?
Oh yeah. And remember, they were all dressed up and they had their wizarding robes and they had their wands. Now, these wands might not have been able to actually do real magic, but they could still be placed in orifices that would hurt if you weren't good enough. And this was a time. I mean, we were so proud to be part of it, because this was Beatlemania for books. I mean, there were thousands of people at midnight queuing at a bookstore to get their hands on a book. It was just unheard of, and it was something that I don't think we'll ever see again. And it was great to be attached to that phenomenon. And being a fan myself, my main reason we took the job was that I could get my hand on book 6 before anyone else. And I remember fighting a 2-foot Dumbledore, this little child dressed Dumbledore, to get in front of him in the queue. It worries me now that he's probably 6'5", built like a Victorian privy, and is looking for revenge about how I pushed him out the way once.
Yeah, but the thing is, you beat him, and that's the point. Just live with that, I think.
I got the book first.
So, look, this has become an international phenomenon. The rest is all history. But can we break it down? And I'll ask you this, Jeff. Can you break it down as a show? Is it kind of, because it's 70 minutes? Is it just 10 minutes a book? How does it all come together?
No, when we decided to actually form it into a structured show, what we decided very early on, because we had book 1, which we do lightning quick. Book 1 takes about 4 minutes, and the joke of it is the speed, and the audience love it, and it's if it's going well, it's near constant laughter because it just sort of rides along. And we realised very, very early on in the writing process we couldn't maintain that either as performers or as a show. The audience would get exhausted if it was like that the whole way through, and it would stop being funny. So our aim, mildly accidental, but it was slightly planned as well, is that every book is different. We do it in a slightly different style. The overall gag is different. So book 1 is super fast. Book 2, Dan gets everything wrong. Book 4 is like a huge back and forth battle. Book 6 is constant surprises. And then book 7, we have interspersed all the way through it rather than book 7 at the end. Because when we first wrote the show, book 7 didn't exist. And then when we wanted to put it into the show, Dan and I performed in Edinburgh again, and we were travelling back on the train back from Edinburgh to London, and we just got book 7, so it had just come out. Dan read it on that train ride, told me what happened, and I was the interesting bits and the highlights, I wrote them down, and then we had a show the following night, and we decided we wanted to put it in but without any spoilers. And we've kind of and it worked. The structure works. We kept it like that. So it's sort of building up book 7, and then we still never really give away everything that happens in book 7, because if you're a slow reader, you might not be there.
Yeah, but I think
I was going
to say just because the great thing now is these books are coming up, past 20, 25 years old. So children who read them are now adults having their own kids. And there's a whole new generation of people finding Harry Potter. And it was amazing to watch that we started performing this show and we had the original fans in. And so they were sort of reading the books with us. And now there's a whole new generation of, you talk to the kids at the start and they're like, oh, I'm on book 4, or I'm just at this bit in book 5. So although there's some spoilers we give, we still wanted to hold some stuff back to go, you don't want to ruin it for everyone. I mean, granted, children will never understand what it was like to have to wait 2 years to get your next installment of Harry Potter, as they just go out and buy the box set and have it all in front of them. They will never understand what we went through.
Oh, the hell of being young. Yeah. But that's a really smart approach. And you're absolutely right, because you have the next generation now coming to the books, and you're testament to that as an early fan who was not the smallest of children at the time. I'm not saying you're old, don't get me wrong, but I have my 13-year-old daughter who has grown up with the books. My wife's a teacher and has been aware of the books for since they were written, and it's almost part of her teaching career. Great for 2 reasons, I suppose, in that they are great books, but also for you. There's always an audience, and there's a new audience created. It's just ongoing. The thing is this, though, and I've been thinking about this, there are quite literally hundreds of characters, and the fans know the intricacies of every character in the book. There's only 2 of you, though.
You noticed that.
So Jeff, yeah. You play multiple roles, as do you, Den.
I do play multiple roles, but I would say for over 90% of the show, I'm either myself or Harry Potter, which is great for me, which means Dan has to play the other 299 characters. So if I'm feeling a bit tired, I can just stand there and watch Dan running around like a lunatic, and it makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah. I'm going to put out a fitness video called the Potted Potter Workout, and it's all about how, you can keep that dad bod at bay just by playing 250 different witches and wizards.
Do you know what? That is an immediate winner, and I know a man who knows a man, so we'll talk afterwards. I did want to ask you, who plays, my daughter might see this, who plays Wilhelmina Grubbly Plank? Because if I ever mention her, it impresses my daughter because she thinks I've been listening to her.
Yeah, that's great. What you've done is the real trick, and I talked to a couple of other dads where you pick a very obscure character, remember the name, and then just drop it in, and they go, "Oh, you know?"
Yeah.
Like, I know. Oh, I know. Yeah.
Yes. I look like a wise old
woman. Yeah. Wilhelmina doesn't appear, but on the night your daughter comes, you let us know. She'll appear. There'll be a cameo. Because, the joy of the show actually is that still to this day, there is a level of improvisation that goes into it. And we want every show to be different. And especially when we're playing the live game of Quidditch, where you're getting people from the audience to join in and you've got quaffles flying around, you have no idea what's going to happen or what's going to be said. So there is a sort of freedom that we can improv with this, which means Wilhelmina will 100% make an appearance.
I love it. Jeff, you make light of your contribution as yourself or Harry Potter, but from what you're both describing, it has to be 70 minutes of absolute mayhem in the best possible way, but it must be exhausting.
Yeah, it is. If we both did what Dan did on the stage, the show wouldn't work. The audience wouldn't know what on earth was going on. So again, when we put it together, I was more grounded person. I sort of stay in the middle with the book, telling the audience what's going on, while Dan's running around like a Labrador puppy who doesn't know where the bones are buried. And but yeah, it is exhausting. It's 70 to 80 minutes we tend to be on the stage, depending on what the audience is like and how rowdy they are. And we're both on the stage for 99% of the time, and so there's nowhere to hide. In fact, there's only one moment in the entire show where Dan and I can communicate to each other. And that's when we're running past each other right at the start and there's loud music. So you can get one word to the other person if it's relevant, like microphone, if the other person's microphone is off or hanging off or something like that. That's it. From then on, if we want to say something to the other person, the audience hear it. And that's all part of it.
Yeah.
It's incredible
I
show.
do remember when we first did the show in Edinburgh, And we learned
Right.
very quickly that we now have towels and bottles of water hidden behind the set, but we didn't have these on the first show. And it must have been about half an hour in, and we were pouring with sweat. And I remember a child in the front row going, "Is he all right, Mummy? He looks very ill." And it was like, oh dear, that's not what we want. So we do have places in the set where there's a towel where you can just run and just dab yourself down a bit and keep your composure.
You say some places, Dan, it's literally anywhere that the audience can't see. Every show, there's over a dozen towels, and I think it's 9 or 10 water bottles dotted around. And there's, coronavirus is bad news for us because there's a lot of water bottle sharing because you don't have a chance to check if it's yours or not. You need to grab a water bottle and you need to get water into your mouth as quickly as possible.
I'm learning an awful lot about the way you two work. Maybe too much information. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Look, I've got loads of questions for you. Just time very quickly for tonight's competition here. So tickets to see Potted Potter aboard the QE2 soon. All you need to do, follow this Facebook page to win. Here's the question. 2 tickets. What subject does Hagrid teach? Keeping it in the Potter family. Please follow the Facebook page. I can see you thinking there, Dan. Follow the Facebook page you're watching.
Can I answer and win the tickets?
No, you can't. There's more chances to win on the Facebook page. Jeff, let me ask you this. I mean, this is not just a show for kids. It's very much aimed at kids in that it's a little bit madcap and slapstick. It's very funny. But Harry Potter, however you do this show, whoever you aim a show like this at, Harry Potter sort of transcends that because it translates for all ages.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really important to us when we wrote it. That was something we had in mind, was that everyone loves, or whoever loves Harry Potter, there's no demographic, any age, any walk of life loves Harry Potter. And so very, very early on, when we very first took the show to the Edinburgh Festival, we expected a very kid-heavy audience because the way we'd marketed it was quite kidified to try and get an audience. A lot of shows were way more than 50% adults. And the way we pitched the show was it's not jokes aimed at kids, it's jokes aimed at adults that kids can get. Because that was the comedy both Dan and I loved as kids. We both loved watching comedy with our dads. And we've talked about this a lot in the past. And whatever made our dad laugh, if we got the joke and laughed as well, it made us feel very grown up and all part of it. So we don't play down to the kids. We throw a joke out, and if a dad and his 2 kids both laugh at it, you've got it. You've scored.
Yeah, and I
you
think
really are on a winner.
Yeah, well, sorry, I keep interrupting. That's terrible of me. I think I would say there are some jokes that do go over the kids' heads, and you have that moment. But at the same time, there's some that will go over the adults' heads. I remember a lovely moment of seeing a child explaining to his grandmother what a Justin Bieber was, because she didn't understand. and it was just nice that they were able to have that moment and explain that. So, there is literally something there for everyone. And, much as you said, in keeping of the books, that the books sort of were for everybody. Or definitely in the
they were.
Books, I think. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, they were and they are. I just love the fact that you've described Justin Bieber as a thing rather than a person. So we should all think of what a Justin Bieber is. Seems to me sometimes that's just perfection. I mean, it's billed as a show, and it's very funny that just the way you build the show for ages 6 to Dumbledore, who is very old indeed. But it's also billed as a show that works if you don't know the difference between a Horcrux and a Hufflepuff, which I have to admit I haven't quite listened hard enough to, so I really don't. But it's for the real fans, the wannabes. It's a family night out, Jeff. Or a family afternoon out.
Yeah, that's it. And actually, when we first put the show together, we thought it was for Harry Potter fans only. We thought that was who would come along and who would like it. But again, very quickly we learned and adapted that people who don't know anything about Harry Potter can really enjoy it too. We've got loads of pop culture references in. And like Dan said, it's improvised at times. It's always changing. Anything that happens in the world, well, that's light-hearted, we put in and we try and include in the show, and we make reference to, and people like that. So if you don't get a Harry Potter joke, you get the next joke. And and also we've had people say they've started watching the films after watching our show, which is about as high a praise you can get. I mean, if they start reading the books as well, that's about as good as it could possibly be. But I'll take the films.
I mean, Dan, to me, that sounds like a huge compliment.
It's an amazing thing. I guess the worry for me would be that I portray Hermione Granger amongst other characters in the book, and as a 6'4" man just entering his 40s, if that's your first ever vision of Hermione Granger, it doesn't matter if you go to the films or the book afterwards, you're going to be very confused.
You are, but I suppose the only way is up, really. If it's you first and then Hermione.
I do think I give Emma Watson a run for her money, and I think, had the films yet to be made, I would definitely have been up for the part. I think it's very fair.
Stand a real chance.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna give you a thumbs up for that one. Let me just bring up Nigel is working in the background. He's got a few pictures, and I wanted to bring up just a few pictures to kind of demonstrate a few of the scenes, the color, to try to give an idea of the costumes and the energy. Really, let's just bring up the first picture. Aha!
Oh, look how different we look in that one.
I know, it may not be you. but the beard was amusing.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we have alternate actors, obviously, because the show is successful, and the amount. And what we do is we try to audition people that we believe, if you look in the mirror, that's who's looking back. But in truth, what we audition are young, far more handsome gentlemen than ourselves, and then we live in this deluded world that we believe that's how we still look.
Yeah, but he wouldn't give Emma Watson a run for her money.
No, he wouldn't. That's Joe there. He's actually been Judi Dench there, just for one of the many pop culture references. Obviously, that's Judi Dench. Yeah, with the beard.
Yeah. With her long, luxurious beard.
Oh, sorry, Dame Judi Dench. I wouldn't want to be offensive.
Yes. Yeah.
Dame, yeah.
Don't forget the name. Jeff, let's bring up number 2. If you can explain the second picture.
Yes, that is, as you can see by his very wise wizarding hat, and he is actually wearing tiny glasses too. That is obviously Albus Dumbledore. You can see he looks at least 80 years old there, and they're consulting the book because neither of them know what the hell's going on, which is quite a running theme through the show, to be honest.
Yeah.
Kind of reflective of the whole atmosphere, I think. Let's bring up a third picture. This one's for you, Dan.
There it is. That's Hermione Granger there. Yeah, that could only be Hermione Granger, who, features very, very, very gruff. I mean, the whole sort of premise of the show is the number 2 character, who is the one in the Hermione hat there. It becomes very relevant very quickly that he's never read the Harry Potter books, but he's trying desperately to please the number 1 character, and he's trying desperately to appease the fact that, because the number 1 is sort of, he knows everything about Harry Potter. This has been his idea to bring these books to life, and the number 2 doesn't know what's going on, but is really trying hard to play these characters to the best of his abilities. But
and that that would kind of drag it. That kind of takes you along with the story, because for those people who know of Harry Potter but aren't really au fait with how the books work, that's part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and we have the number 2 character. His main things are he's very excited about the dragon appearing in book 4, because we do have a live fire-breathing dragon on stage. That's where we've blown all our budget. And he's also very excited about playing Quidditch. That's his one thing. He just wants to play Quidditch, and he doesn't understand why you wouldn't drop everything and just play Quidditch.
Let's just look at the one last picture. This is for you, Jeff. Picture number. Oh, there you go.
Yes, so that is one of the big climaxes in the show. That is Scott as Harry and Joe as Voldemort. And this is where they really come together for one of their biggest fights. But of course, we think Voldemort has just a little bit of a special something about him. So you can see his wand is a little campy and a little festive, because we think he's got a little glint in his eye that you don't necessarily see so much in the film. So we like to bring that out. I mean, he's buff, he's a bodybuilder, so of course he likes a little bit of sparkle.
This actually leads to my favourite line in the
character alive, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going to say, if it leads to my favourite line in the whole show of Voldemort, where he does bring that wand out and say, well, it's the wand that picks the wizard. It wasn't my doing. This one picked me.
Well, we'll see a little excerpt in a short while. Last night, I was watching the potted Potter version on YouTube that we showed at the start. I was kind of skeptical. I'll be completely honest, but it was so genuinely slapstick and really very funny. It made me think, I want to see this. But above anything, I got the feeling that you may have done this thousands of times, and I'm sure you have, and there are other people in your troupe doing other shows in other countries. You're so close to this, but I got a real feeling that you both really love it. You really love doing it. Dan,
wow, we are good actors, aren't we? That's
well, you must be.
No, I mean, you know, you're like, any job can be tough, but our job is to pretend to be wizards from books we loved. You know, I was going to say we're closet geeks. It's very obvious we're not closet anything. I mean, we are doing shows about Harry Potter. So just, and the fun you get to have with it, and the general just joy and excitement to get up on stage and hear the laughter of people playing all these very silly characters. And every actor dreamt of being in one of the Harry Potter movies and playing one of those characters. I get to play all of them. I get to play Dumbledore and Snape and Hagrid and Hermione and Ron. I mean, you know, what other actor wouldn't want? It's just a dream come true. And I say a dream come true. We had to write it for ourselves because no one would have ever cast us in this. So that's just the only way we made it work, was to write our own work.
Well, you brought your dream to fruition, I suppose. But I mean, above anything, even that, Jeff, you get to be the lead.
Absolutely. And I absolutely agree with what Dan just said. I mean, any one of those actors in the Harry Potter films who are paid tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to appear in those films would have dreamt, could only have dreamt to be doing what we're doing on stage. But no, playing Harry Potter is, I mean, it's fantastic. And yet, like Dan said, it is a job. And there are times when you're out on tour and it's, you know, month 3 and you've just done the show 250 times, where you do go, it's a bit of a drag, or I'm tired, or I can't be bothered with this. But as soon as you go out on stage, it lifts you anyway. And more than that, I would say the last 3 months has really hammered home how grateful we should be with what we have in normal times. And, you know, what I wouldn't give to be able to run out on a stage with it not being a fully socially distanced audience right now, and just play a regular potted Potter. Yeah.
That's really something to remember. That's the context for you. Has anybody from, I don't know, the movies, the J.K. Rowling, has anybody connected to Potter ever given you any feedback on that?
Well, there is a story which we actually found out recently was true, that when we first did the show in Edinburgh, we very fortunate sold out the run, and we hadn't realized, you know, this was unheard of at Edinburgh Festival, but it turns out we'd sold out a run because if you put Harry Potter on anything, it seems to sell, which is a lovely thing. And
who knew?
Towards the end, I think it was our last show, we'd finished our show, we were all really excited, and one of the box office girls was sort of moping a bit with tears in her eyes, and we were like, what's wrong, what's happened? And the manager goes, say what happened. And a woman had come up to see the show, the last performance, and she turned her away. And the manager walked in going, why is J.K. Rowling just left? And so J.K. Rowling had turned up to our last Edinburgh show in this 60-seater church hall, and the girl hadn't recognised her and said, we're sold out, and sent her away. So yeah. And we weren't sure if this was true or not until we were at a function for Lumos, the Rowling's charity, and she was there, and we were introduced to her, and she went, oh, I tried to see your show in Edinburgh once, but I got turned away because you were sold out, so congratulations on that. And we were like, oh dear. So we now say that anywhere we are in the world, one seat will always be left free in case she turns up. It doesn't matter what theatre it is, where we are, in case she turns up, there is one seat ready for her.
Oh, and that seat is a throne, I guess, with lots of cushions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We won't make that mistake twice.
Man, oh, that's fantastic. Let's see a little bit more of what you do. And the lockdown for you guys has also been a time to share Potter online. So let's just have a quick look at this little piece of video.
Hello, we are Dan and Jeff. He's Dan.
And he's Jeff, and we are from Potted Potter, the unauthorised Harry experience.
Woo! Potted Potter in lockdown!
Lockdown! Now, for your delight and delectation today, we are going to attempt to do a book number 1 in 1, maybe 2 minutes.
So, let us begin at the beginning. Right there.
Let's get this show on the road with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's / Sorcerer's Stone.
Start the book.
Once upon a time, there was a boy called Harry Potter.
Hi, I'm Harry Potter.
He was 11.
Hi, I'm Harry Potter.
He lived under the stairs.
I live under the stairs.
Now, it turned out he was a wizard.
Woo!
They gave him a wand
Thank you.
and an owl called Hedwig. Twitoo!
A message.
Now, to be a fully fledged wizard, you had to go to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And the only way to get to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry was aboard the Hogwarts Express. And the only way to get to the Hogwarts Express was to go to King's Cross Station, platform 9 3/4, and quite simply run straight through the wall.
Run through the wall.
Right through the wall.
Straight through the wall.
You've got to run through the wall.
All the way through the wall.
You're not going to run through the wall, are you?
I'm not as stupid as you are.
Right.
Now, when Harry got to Hogwarts, he made some very good friends. The first of which is a young boy by the name of Ron Weasley.
Oh, I'm Ron Weasley, innit? I is sick. I is lit. I is wicked. For here am I, defying gravity. I is a ginger ninja. It's me. I've been Ron wearing a wig.
Yes, thank you. I can tell. Now, he made another friend as well, a young lady by the name of Hermione Granger.
Hello, I'm Hermione Granger.
Who was also 11.
I know.
You didn't know many girls when you were 11, did you, Dan?
Don't know many girls now, if I'm honest, mate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it is genuinely laugh out loud funny. It's one of those shows and that you can't switch off in because it moves so quickly and it is so funny, but there's so much going on and it moves so fast. So it's just so full of energy.
Yeah, and that's I guess that's one way how we get through that every night. That is the energy also coming from the audience, who we've always said the audience is the third cast member, and we encourage the audience to join in. We encourage them to shout out, which they do like to. I think we get very strong heckles. Like a lot of our friends are stand-up comics and say, you know nothing of what a heckle is. And I was like, no, we can get very strange heckles. We can get, and also, especially when you're playing to an audience that can have children, children will always speak their mind. And I remember once we were doing the show and this child just was like, I'm a bit bored now, Daddy, can we go? And it was, everyone heard it. And you were just like, they go, right, well, there's the heckle. That's done then, really. But we were able to rope the child back in, and he came and played Quidditch with us and was happy by the end. But it was just that sort of, you can't, I don't think you can be ever put down as much as the child just going, oh, I'm bored now, but thanks. You gave it a good shot, but we're done.
Stand-ups have nothing compared to what you go through.
Exactly.
Let's offer some tickets once again. Another chance to see Potted Potter on board the QE2 here in Dubai soon. Remember to follow this Facebook page that you're watching to win. All you have to do, comment in the feed you're watching. The question is, what subject does Hagrid teach from the series? Now, don't forget, follow us on social media. More chances to win there as well. On Instagram, for example, find us at QE2 Theatre, at Big Fish Comedy ME, and at bookmyshow_UAE. Competition winners announced on the Facebook page you're watching. So be watching to win. Dan and Jeff, this is an unauthorized Harry experience. Perhaps it will continue to be unless you do finally let J.K. Rowling in. Just a thought. And it takes on the ultimate challenge of condensing all 7 Harry Potter books and a real-life game of Quidditch into 70 hilarious minutes. That's the quote. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Quidditch demands that you fly upon a broomstick, Jeff.
You have been paying attention. Yes, your daughter will be proud of you. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you say that. I don't really know why you bring it up. You wait. The QE2, when we're out there are going to be children, audience members flying around, falling off. I think Dan keeps counting. I think we've only had 3 deaths so far. From children.
3 fatalities, which isn't bad for 14 years.
No,
I think 3 fatalities.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, beaters, quaffles flying everywhere. And then
nearly every 5 years.
The survivors then have to face the fire-breathing dragon in book 4. So if you manage to survive both gauntlets, get to the end of the show unscathed, then you've done pretty well.
Yeah, and
let me just pick you up.
2020.
I'm sorry, I
Yes.
don't mean to butt in. I don't mean to be rude, but Jeff just mentioned fire-breathing dragon.
Yeah, there is a full fire-breathing dragon in the show. It's quite spectacular. Puts anything Game of Thrones has shown you to shame.
Right.
Not that that'd be difficult with the final season of Game of Thrones, but you know, Game of Thrones at its height puts it to shame, really. So I think it's worth coming for that. And I was also going to say, new for 2020 will be our socially distanced Quidditch, which means, you know, lots of broomsticks, but just 6 foot apart. So that's good. But the broom pole actually marks that distance, so it works quite well on stage for us.
Yeah, 2 brooms apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So aside from socially distanced Quidditch, a fire-breathing dragon, and no fatalities really to even mention, the humour is it's always topical in some way, Jeff. It's squeaky clean, so there's no concerns for parents bringing, you know, smaller children, is there?
Absolutely not. No, it's really important to us that it is suitable for all the family. But that doesn't mean we can't put slightly controversial jokes in here and there, ones that do fly over the kids' heads. We've had for the last couple of years, because we tour America quite a lot, so we do mention a certain president of America, and we've really never had any trouble with that at all. We've been to Republican strongholds, southern states, wherever where you'd think it'd be popular, but most people can laugh at themselves, which is a great thing. But our show's just been in Vegas for a few months, and we had huge backlash about our Trump jokes in that. We had people walking out.
You
and
mentioned
I mean,
the president. We didn't know which one you said. Now you said him. It could have been any president who's a bit like a Dark Lord.
Well, yeah, we really don't push it very far. We only say things that have already been said other places, and probably do it quite mildly. But yeah, the fact that people walk out, and the fact that those people could have guns on them, we decided to tweak the show slightly whilst in Vegas. But yeah, we try and stick topical stuff in, and if you can get hyper topical stuff in, stuff that's literally happened the day before, you get such a big reaction because people don't expect a stage show like a play to have something in that quickly, and it's nice to get that.
And Dan, that's something you try to do in your performances, isn't it? To try to bring in the topicalness. That's a real kind of sideways glance for people. It's a real moment, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's important because, I mean, the Harry Potter world is changing all the time. There's always new films being added, like the Fantastic Beasts movies. There's then the theme parks opening. There was the Pottermore website. And so we try and keep as current as we can with all of those things. And then the joy of being unauthorized means that we don't have to follow a line on, we have to go, okay, here's what we have to say about these things. We can be perfectly honest and open, and also mention other things. There's a moment where we can't find book 3, but we do find 50 Shades of Grey, which, you know, takes the show on a different angle for a few moments. And just those sort of nods that we're able to put in. And, you know, we do mention a certain other book about vampires, which I'll say Twilight, which we think is, I was trying to be polite, but I can't. It's god awful. And so we do mention that, and it's amazing the reaction that gets from the Potter fans when you say about sparkly vampires in Twilight. So we're able to sort of tongue-in-cheek sort of make fun of the Potter world and tell the jokes the fans themselves was want to tell. I think that was a quote we had from one of the Harry Potter fan sites. And so it's really nice and refreshing that we can sort of come at it in that way. And, you know, we have a coffin on stage, and it might be that's where Cedric Diggory lives, and we give a kind of nod and a wink to that, and just those little moments where we're able to just have fun with the text as well. Because, you know, when you do look at some of the things at face value, it is very silly. Like the rules of Quidditch alone make absolutely no sense. And so when you're trying to explain to an audience, here's how we're going to play Quidditch, but none of this matters, because as long as you catch the snitch, you get 150 points and the whole game's over. So who cares what the rules are?
Let's just have another quick look at you during lockdown, the two of you. And this video is just an excerpt of how you treat book 2.
Hello, internets. We are Dan and Jeff. He's Dan.
And he's Jeff, and this is Potted Potter in Lockdown, where we are going to attempt to do for you today book number 2, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Start the book. Now, fresh from his victory over Voldemort in the first book, Harry is very much looking forward to his second year at Hogwarts. That is until he's visited by a strange little house elf named Dobby.
Aha! It's me, Dobby, the house elf! Do not go back to Hogwarts! It is a bad place, it will bite you and scratch you, and you're gonna die! Ah!
And what's that, Dan?
It's me, Dobby, the house elf!
It's very hard to get things in lockdown, Jeff. Toilet paper, house elves.
We are doing the best we can!
Is that my sock?
Oh! Jeff has given Dan a sock! Dan is a free elf! Yay!
Yeah, you're still in lockdown.
Oh.
So Harry carries on straight back to Hogwarts, where he discovers that Hagrid is in trouble for opening the door of the Chamber of Secrets.
Hey, I see, Jimmy O'Hara. Someone's opened the door to the Chamber of Secrets, but I didn't do it.
Did you learn your Scottish accent from Shrek?
Ah, shut your mouth, donkey. There's been a murder. A murder.
Yeah, and I think we can all now agree the victim's the work of J.K. Rowling. Now, no one can work out how to get Hagrid off the hook. That is until the discovery of a diary written by a young boy from the past named Tom Riddle.
Hello, it's me, Tom Riddle, a young boy from the past. Go blimey, Mary Poppins.
Now, no one can work out who Tom Riddle was.
Well, it's me, Dan, I'm wearing a hat.
Yeah, I know that, you know that, but they don't.
Oh, right.
I'm sorry, but my wife is from Glasgow, and I can't now show her the video.
Don't apologise.
I'm so very sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'm half Scottish. Half my family are from Glasgow, and even they watch that video. How did that? How did nothing? Like half of you is Scottish. How is there not a bone in your body that can replicate the Scottish accent?
Owned you now. However, you were redeemed by your Dick Van Dyke, which was far better than Dick Van Dyke was Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, there you go. I can do Dick Van Dyke Cockney. He was, yeah.
You mentioned something now that I was going to bring up with you, actually, and it is this what you've been doing during lockdown. I mean, it's been a very tough time for so many people, and continues to be tough for so many people as well. But has it given you, I don't know, an opportunity to rethink the show, to work on new characters, or maybe new show ideas? I was going to put to you, and I promise you this, maybe a potted Twilight or a potted Maze Runner. And then I thought, that doesn't work. And I wanted to pitch you this. I think something more for an adult audience, not in that way. Potted Rambo would work. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd be up for that. I think, yeah. It's weird. We've been having conversation about some sort of potted sort of action movie that takes on sort of Rambo and the Predator and the I'm trying to think of all the other ones, sort of Die Hard and all of those and puts it into one story. If you could imagine that this happens to one person who has to go through all of those things, I think there could be definitely something. Yeah.
Or what about you could change the name slightly and go in a different direction? A Pocket Rocky, maybe. I don't know if that works.
But now I see this idea of just this tiny little Italian boxer that just sort of is actually in your pocket.
Funny, but maybe it wouldn't work. I mean, on a slightly more, not even more serious note, but you do other potted shows, don't you, as well?
Yeah, we do. I'll go on.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So Potted Potter was our first. That's our baby, and then we then did Potted Pirates, which we like to refer to as our difficult second album. That just after about 3 or 4 years of touring, that recouped our producer's money and was very quietly put in a little box, never to be opened again. But we have 2 others that we're very proud of, which are our Potted Panto, which is 7 pantomimes in one show, and Potted Sherlock, which is every single Sherlock Holmes story, which, if I remember correctly, Dan, is 60 or 61 Sherlock Holmes stories.
61 Sherlock Holmes stories, yeah.
That was a very tiring show. But we just did Potted Panto again over Christmas in South London, and we hadn't performed that for a couple of years, and it was so much fun, and the audiences were so good. And if there is such a thing, it was the perfect show for us to do before going into lockdown, because I've got such good memories of performing that. I mean, I get to dress as princesses for about 70% of the show. So who wouldn't enjoy that?
Well, I was going to say to you, I was going to ask Dan that actually, but I mean, you kind of answered it. But what were the costume changes like in Potted Panto?
Well, Potted Panto, we decided just to up the ante from Potted Potter, so they were going to be full costumes. So we have two amazing ASMs who work with us on that show, who I think work harder than we do, of rushing different costumes to either wing to get us. But things like I played both the ugly sisters, so I'd run off stage as Prince Charming, put on this big dress, have another big huge puppet of another woman next to me, and then rush straight back on stage. Then you're rushed off, you're changed to the fairy godmother, then you're pushed back out. And there was a lot of moments of you literally had to look down for a second, register which costume you're in, go, oh right, it's this bit of the show, now I go out. Or you would come out dressed as Prince Charming doing a Wicked Witch's voice, go, yeah, okay, this has gone horribly, horribly wrong.
But I guess in a weird, perverse way, that kind of works. What is it about Harry Potter, though? Because we've been talking about this for the last 45 minutes. My alarm just went. I apologize for that. These stories that translate everywhere. Wherever you go around the world, you've been in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa. You've been here in the UAE before, obviously all around the UK and Europe. You took it to Mexico. You've performed in Malaysia. There's nowhere that doesn't dig Potter.
Yeah, I think because I remember when it was a huge success in Britain, and we were like, well, this is amazing. For the first time, Britain had a hero, like not since James Bond, and we had a good British hero, as we were always used to being the villains in the films. Like, you know, you go to Star Wars, you go to the Death Star, and it's like the Queen's Garden Party with everyone talking, going, oh, hello, Lord Vader, lovely to be here. I mean, that's how we knew British people. But I think the heart of Potter is just this good versus evil and good triumphing, and everyone, this whole acceptance of everyone, that it doesn't matter who you are, how different you are, if you're a house elf, a giant, a centaur, if you're half wizard, full wizard, if you're a wizard who powers don't work anymore, if you're just a plain muggle, that we all come together, and at the end, once we all unite, we will succeed over this evil. And I think that's a great message, and especially in this day and age right now, it's a great message to hold on to.
Jeff, would you agree with that? I mean, there's something very special. It's very hard to zero in, but that sort of triumph over good and evil, the classic story, is at the heart of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and that's what we focus on in the show. That's the through line, is Harry versus Voldemort. It's the good versus evil battle, because that's what the show's about. That's what the series is about. But then if it was just that, it wouldn't work. It's what J.K. Rowling has done so masterfully is all the dressing around that, the storytelling, every character is interesting for some reason, and yeah, like Dan said, this sort of the inclusion, and again, right now that's so important and so relevant still. And it was just one of those things that could never be recreated. She wrote the right thing at the right time. It caught the public's imagination. I mean, I'm not saying that's luck. That's a real talent. She just pitched the correct thing at the correct time, and you couldn't recreate that. You couldn't write something similar now and have the same effect. We're never going to see anything like that for books again, I don't think.
There's one more chance to win, a final chance to win tickets to see Potted Potter on board the QE2 in the very near future. Just comment in the feed you're watching. The question is, what subject does Hagrid teach? We'll announce the winner, and we'll also announce the answer in tomorrow's show at the top. Look in the content section of the Facebook page you're following. Don't forget to follow Theatre by QE2, Big Fish Comedy, and Book My Show UAE on social media for more chances to win, and also for more on upcoming shows as well. The alarm was there to tell me that I've been talking at you two guys for too long. I did want to just bring up one thing. And I guess, like everybody, you're looking forward to getting out of lockdown and getting back on stage and back to work, looking forward to the end of lockdown. But Dan, I gather that for you, the QE2 and a performance there is a little bit like coming home.
It is. I mean, I was remembered earlier, and it was my parents who reminded me, when I was just turned 4 years old, my parents, we went aboard the QE2 as a family and did the Southampton to New York crossing. And the first theatre show I saw was aboard the QE2. It was like a medley of musical Broadway hits. And at 4 years old, I didn't remember much of it, but I do remember them singing "There's no business like show business" in these big feather glittery things and walking around that great hall, which I assume is still there, and the spiral staircases. And I just have these sort of flash memories, which I'm sure will flood back when I see it again. I mean, I do remember my dad waking us up at, must have been like 5:30 in the morning, so we could see the Statue of Liberty as we came to the harbour. And being a 4-year-old, very tired, very seasick as you are when you wake up, I was just like, I don't know why I'm here. And he's like, look at the statue. I was like, you woke me up to look at a statue. Okay, no, this isn't cool. You're no longer my father. We're done.
Jeff, are you like me thinking there's some kind of prophecy that seems to be emerging in Dan's life here?
Well, this is genuinely true. One of my cousins is a lot older than me, and he was a barman on the QE2. Now, I don't know exactly when or what periods, but it is quite possible that he was serving Dan's parents their cocktails aboard the QE2, which I think was a real forbearing for mine and Dan's relationship. Dan still sort of just swans around and expects me to wait on him hand and foot.
Do you know, one of the things that's been really evident today is the chemistry between you, and I can see exactly how this show works. Look, that's all the time we have. Dan, Jeff, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and we'll be seeing you soon.
No, thank you very much.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you for watching tonight. We're back tomorrow night at the same time, courtesy Big Fish Comedy. It's going to be time for some serious comedy, in quotation marks, and for an explanation of what that actually means. I'm going to be talking and chatting to the very funny Keith Farnan. Don't forget to check out and follow the Instagram handles for @QE2 Theatre, Big Fish Comedy ME, and @BookMyShow_UAE to get news of our next shows. Like and follow the Facebook page you're watching, please. Thanks to Theatre by QE2, Big Fish Comedy, Book My Show, H2 Productions, Nigel as ever producing. And that's it for tonight. Stay safe. Wear your masks. Good night.